How you doing?
Yeah, that's more people than I was expecting.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start by talking a little bit about how you're using AI at Outreach.
Yeah. So we've been using AI for a long time, in that because Outreach is a sales platform, and platform is all about communications. The way that we help the seller is to help them with the communications, whether it's writing their emails or summarizing meetings, or giving them a real-time assistant during a meeting, right? In sales, the moments that matter are the moments that you're in front of a customer. That's what matters the most. So whatever we can do to help the sales rep when they're in front of a customer is the most important value that we can bring. So because of that, we've been developing and tagging data for a long time. So this new relevance of AI is sort of like, it's useful to us, but we've been in the game for a while.
You've been working on using AI in that process. But how has ChatGPT, the launch of foundation models, or the explosion of foundation models, made a difference to that process? Is it a notable difference, or as big a difference as it seems?
So to us, the thing that we all have to remember is that right now sorry, it's a little loud. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. So right now in B2B SaaS, in business-to-business SaaS, no one is getting paid for AI. Only NVIDIA is making money. So you have to be judicious as to where you embed it, because most of the time it's going to be an expected value of your application. Can help you in competitive differentiation if you apply it right. So we use different types of models depending on the task, right? So for instance, when we do sentiment classification, we use Google Bard. We don't use anything fancy. When we do meeting summaries, and when you want to inquire about what happened in an email, then we use more of a ChatGPT interface because it's more conversational, right? You want to know what happened in the conversation, etc. When we do, we have an application that gives you a real-time assistant during your call that answers the questions that a customer asks before you can answer it. And the time that the question answer needs to pop is sub 6 microseconds. And ChatGPT can't act that fast, so we can't use it because it's the time that we need to be able to answer before it gets recorded in the sales rep's brain. So we have to use something else that is way faster. So GPT is just one of the many tools that you have to use, and you have to do the cost trade-off analysis, right? Like, am I going to get paid enough for what I'm selling to pay OpenAI for this? Or I'm not gonna get paid, and I shouldn't be spending that much money on these big, large language models.
Because that does seem to be the cost point, the pain point is the large management. You mentioned NVIDIA. The chip makers, they are the only ones making it.
There's nobody else right now.
So let's build on that a little bit. Where is the benefit point from using AI in your business, and where should you maybe avoid using AI and instead find other ways to do it?
Yeah. That's a really good. So it's a really good question. I don't think there's an answer for that question yet, because we're all a little bit experimenting. We're seeing what are the possibilities and where do we add value. So to some degree, using AI in business-to-business applications is a little bit like a startup. We're all looking for good product market fit. And the saying in startups is that you want to build a painkiller and not a vitamin. And right now there's a lot of vitamins. There's a lot of things that make it a little bit better, but not better enough to pay the huge tax that you have to pay to NVIDIA or to OpenAI for the use of it. You're seeing stronger product market fit in copilots, where when in our own consumption of the copilot, we see 40% acceptance rates of the suggestions a copilot makes. So you have to assume that now an engineer is 40% more efficient because he's accepting more recommendations. So that's useful.
Okay.
But when you see, chat recommendations as all these other things that are coming up, or writing, email writing or PowerPoint writing or website writing, it's there, but it's not quite as powerful. Unless you charge a lot of money and make the difference between what you're paying NVIDIA and what you're getting paid.
You mentioned Copilot and engineering. Obviously, we're talking a little bit about GitHub Copilot.
Right.
It seems to have done really well, and that's because it's quite prescriptive. There are certain modules that you're working to. Languages are. Can that same effect be mirrored in sales when there are a lot more variables to play, can you create a single co-pilot for sales?
So sales is fundamentally a human-to-human endeavor. And sales is almost a transfer of emotion. You know, you only buy from somebody if you emotionally feel committed to buy it. So most people think that we're very rational, right? That we take a step back and we analyze the pros and the cons and that we do a price analysis. That rarely happens.
Right.
The most common thing in sales is that you make an emotional decision and then you backfill it with facts to make you feel rational, when in reality the whole thing was emotional.
Okay.
So can an AI emulate that? I think it can, but it's fairly complex because you know, especially in a world like today where, you know, the more expensive something is, the more people are going to be involved.
Yep.
So you don't have to deal with one buyer to sell a transaction. You have to deal with a buying group, each of them with their own set of emotions, each of them pulling in different directions. And I don't know that we have an AI that is that sophisticated yet.
So arguably at the moment, the human intelligence is better value than the artificial intelligence.
Right now it is. And especially to get it done, right? Like I said, at the end of the day, the goal of sales is to make a sale. And the goal of anybody who employs a sales team is to have, you know, predictable, consistent revenue going up and to the right. And unless AI can assure you of that, you know, it's going to be a useful tactical tool for different parts of the sales process. It's not going to be in the middle of your process anytime soon.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about training models, okay? I know we're going to go on to the broader perspective around cutting through that hype and finding ways through that. But let's talk about training your own models, because right now the hype is around ChatGPT, it's around Bard, it's around the big foundation models.
Yes.
But that's not necessarily where the future is going to lie, is it? It's not necessarily where the success or the financial reward is going to be.
Yes, that is very true. And it's actually a little bit worse because, you know, for those of us to sell to other companies, especially we need to respect the local regulations where those companies operate. And as governments get smarter and ask better questions around, you know, your AI and what, you know, copyright infringements and other rights that are infringing because you don't know where the data that was fed came from, then we all in the ecosystem become liable to do that. So, you know, we're quickly going to see two things. One is a driver towards a better economic model. We won't be able to pay the huge tax that we're paying to NVIDIA right now. And another one is a driver towards this, you know, safer, you know, more sort of like open, if you would, AI that knows where the data, the training data came from, and you can do assurances, you know, with penalties that you're not infringing on anybody's rights. And until those two things come to pass, the consumption of AI in a business-to-business sense is going to be limited. I don't know if you know this, but Amazon demanded 2 weeks ago that anyone with AI in their product, they cancel their contracts until they can come in and explain where the AI comes from. Because now they are exposed to all their buyers and vendors in countries they operate if they happen to use something that will be penalized. So it's becoming a real thing now.
What's the bigger worry for you? And I know this answer will vary depending on which industry you're working in or which industry you're working with, but is the cost of AI a bigger risk to your business, or is the ever-changing face of regulation the bigger risk?
It's the latter.
Okay.
In the cost of AI, so in the startup world, we have a saying, right? If you can make something 10x better, you're going to get paid. Anything short of that, and you're not quite in the painkiller, you know, you're just a vitamin. So I think that with the new advances of AI, there's going to be a 10x factor to a lot of the things that we do. But if we cannot pass muster with government regulation, especially in Europe, then we're going to be limited. Now, the U.S. is Wild West. This is why, you know, there's a lot of startups there. But once you go to Europe, and there's a lot more, you know, every country decides that they're going to regulate AI in a different way. That creates an incredible limiter of how much you can use in the application and how much you can sell. Because, again, behind every sale, there is a contract where we have to give assurances and monetary, you know, along with the monetary penalties if we're violating anybody's rights.
There's recently a group of big tech companies and startups have been trying to campaign for foundation models to be removed from the EU AI Act because of the impact it will have on the startup culture. Is that something you'd support, or do you think that there needs to be broad regulation?
I think that, look, I think that so let's take a step back. The reason OpenAI was founded was to bring the government into the development of AI before AI got too far ahead of itself. Things change, and it turned out to be not what it was intended to be. And now it's just a commercial, endeavor just like any other. I think that the fact that that GPT is benefiting from the vastness of the internet that do not belong to them begs a government intervention to make sure that everybody's rights are being respected and that it's doing the right thing, that biases are removed, those kinds of things. And that would just make it safer for everybody, right? Like, the agreement of governments as to what works and what doesn't is lubricant for sales. Yeah. And anything that is impinging on your ability to sell a piece of software, it's just friction. It needs to go.
So how do we ensure that the human remains at the center of it? That we're not swept up completely as companies, as individuals, by the hype surrounding foundation AI, by generative AI, and ensure that the human is considered through it, the investors considered, and the employees?
I think that, can I see a show of hands? How many here have a startup? Like, are you founders, CEOs? All right, not that many of you. I don't know what the rest of you do, but I'm sure you're busy. So look, the goal of any startup is to become a big company and get it paid. Yeah. So, the hype of AI is only useful if it's going to help you achieve something towards a goal of creating something big. If you're not doing that, if you're not creating a very, big sustainable model that eventually becomes cash flow positive and you can turn that into a big company, it's a bit of a waste. So, all this hype around AI has to be measured so that you can, make it do something useful for you and the customers that you're serving, and make sure that you get paid for it. Yeah. If those things are not happening, then we're this is just going to be a massive waste, and NVIDIA is the only one making money. So
you're using, as a company at Outreach, you're using pretty much, it sounds like you're using almost every AI model on the market at this
every
point.
Single one out there.
Have you thought about training your own models, about building on your own data as a way to offset some of those costs, or is that expensive in its own right?
Yeah. So right now it's still expensive in its own right. It takes up a lot of time, takes up a lot of people, and we're still finding the right applications for what type of AI. So for instance, when we use GPT, we're limited by the context window. So we use GPT in meeting summaries, for instance, right? So a meeting happens, we take that entire meeting and then we feed it to GPT to figure out what happened during the meeting. The moment you answer that question, our customers are asking, great, I want to know what happened in a series of meetings. So not in one meeting, but what happened throughout the month, and did we move a deal forward because of those meetings? So now I have, my data set went from this to this, and the context window remains the same size. Right. So what is going on is that we're going to have to daisy chain this meeting. So we're going to have to put each meeting through a GPT transfer and then put that result into another GPT to get the result of what happened in a month. So right there, I just tripled my cost. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that summary of a series of meetings better be useful to somebody, and like very, very useful.
Right. Okay.
And to the point that it either closes more deals for me or increases the price of what I'm selling. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable, right? That doesn't preclude us from experimenting. Yeah. But at some point, everybody has got to get paid.
So costs aside, just for a minute.
Yeah.
Just for a minute. Since the launch of or rise of the new AI, in this we're talking foundation models, what's the one most useful tool or use case for AI that you've found in closing a deal?
It's the ability to inquire. So where I'm finding the best use for AI is when you are a manager and you have, in sales specifically, you have a ratio of about 10 to 1. So you have 10 people reporting to you, and each person is working on about 20 deals.
Right.
So now you have 200 deals to inspect. You don't have time in a week to inspect 200 deals. Right. So you want to be able to feed all that into one big model that says, which one of these 200 needs my attention right now, and which one needs my attention next, and so on and so forth. ChatGPT is brilliant at finding the patterns and discrepancies in what makes a deal work and what doesn't make a deal work, so that a manager can prioritize their time. Otherwise, they just go crazy. So that is the best case that we found right now for AI in sales.
And is AI actually improving productivity for you as a company?
It's improving productivity to the manager, and it's reducing. So I measure productivity in time right now. I mean, there's other ways to measure productivity in terms of lift and ROI and all these other things. But the best thing, the most palpable way to get productivity is to figure out how much time did I free up. And what we did do is that we removed 8 hours of meetings per week per seller.
Wow.
By not having somebody ask them, how's the deal going?
Yeah.
Because if you have 20 deals, I'm going to ask you probably about 10 times, how is deal X, Y, or Z going? And that conversation doesn't happen anymore because the manager can just inquire to the application, how is this rep doing? What deals are at risk? And that removes a series of meetings. So that is really useful right now.
Okay, now we're coming to the end. Let's look at the human again. How do you, as productivity increases, as the cost of the AI goes down,
yes,
how do you ensure that it's not human jobs that are going? How do you protect people in these environments? How do your sales staff make sure that they're still getting paid at the end of the week?
I think that look, I can't assure you that all jobs are going to be safe. And I think that the jobs in sales are going to change, meaning if you're not well-versed in these new technologies, you're going to get steamrolled by the younger rep who's able to use all the things out there and able to outsell you. The beautiful thing in sales is that your number is your calling card. There is no such thing as resume. There is no such thing as school. Nobody cares.
Okay.
You either make money for the company or you don't. So it's a fairly black and white thing. And as long as you use the right technology to do it, you're going to be safe.
Fantastic. Well, that's the end, but I suppose the answer is learn how to use AI.
That's right. Thank you so much. That's a great conversation.